Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Pequignet Concorde Titanium 36mm. This watch is available from pequignet.com for €4,800. I previously reviewed the Concorde 40mm in stainless steel. This version of the Concorde in titanium in 36mm is a novelty or new release from Pequignet. Pequignet have a rich brand heritage. They were founded in 1973 in France and they're currently based in Morteau in France. In 2011, Pequignet became a manufacturer. What that means is they began to manufacture their own in-house calibers in Morteau in France rather than buying in movements from ETA and Sellita respectively. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is housed inside this outer white cardboard box. As you can see on the top of the lid to the outer box we have the Pequignet logo. So one removes the lid to the base, which is a snug fit, pulls down the flap, and inside we have the watch box itself. So it's a plastic watch box which is coated in white vinyl to a good standard, flawless stitching around the perimeter of the lid. On the top of the hinge lid we have the Pequignet logo, and on the front of the watch box in the lower right corner we have the fleur de lis or lily. The fleur de lis is the Pequignet brand emblem, and below the fleur de lis we have Manufacture Francais. This confirms that Pequignet watches and their in-house calibers are indeed made in Morteau in France. So one opens the hinge lid, which is spring loaded. The interior of the watch box is upholstered with light grey contrasting velour fabric to good standard. We have the Pequignet logo on the underside of the hinge lid. The base is also upholstered with contrasting orange velour fabric in the cutouts, and also the base is upholstered with grey velour fabric to good standard, so good presentation. Right hand cutout houses this padded pillow cushion which the watch sits on in shipping, and it's upholstered to a good standard in grey velour fabric. Left hand cutout houses this vinyl plastic watch roll. Good attention to detail because it's embossed with the Pequignet logo, flawless stitching around the perimeter, stainless steel popper, and it houses a padded pillow cushion which the watch sits on, which is grey velour fabric upholstered. So excellent presentation, good quality watch roll, and immediately one gets the impression that the Concorde Titanium 36mm is a high quality piece made in Morteau in France. With regards to items, one gets this plastic tag which has the Pequignet logo embossed in black, and on the reverse we have the full reference number of the piece, the Concorde Titanium 36mm. Now, you'll note that there are two items which are absent, a warranty card and also an owner's instruction manual. I'd like to see Pequignet include an owner's instruction manual in the form of a printed booklet with clear concise diagrams, instructions in English and also French, bilingual, detailing the operation of the movement used, which is the Pequignet Caliber Initial Automatic. As an alternative to a printed booklet, Pequignet could use a card with a QR code that could be scanned with an Android or iPhone to download the owner's instruction manual. The other thing I'd like to see included is a warranty card, because on a positive note this piece is covered by a 5-year international warranty. Just think about that for a moment. This is a mid-tier piece, so to clarify, mid-tier is €500 to €5,000 price point respectively, so at €4,800 it's clearly within the mid-tier. With a mid-tier piece, the industry standard is a 12-month or 2-year international warranty, but Pequignet exceed this. This watch and the movement inside, which is an in-house caliber, the Pequignet Caliber Initial Automatic, are covered with a 5-year international warranty. 5 years of international warranty is the industry standard for high-tier pieces costing €10,000 plus. So for example, Rolex pieces are covered with 5 years of warranty. It's to be expected, but it's very unusual to see a mid-tier piece at €4,800 like this, covered with 5 years of warranty and also 5 years of warranty on their in-house caliber. Pequignet deserve full credit for that. I think it's excellent. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 36mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 42.6mm, a thickness of 9.5mm, and an integrated lug width of 12.2mm. The integrated bracelet tapers at the integrated lugs from 19.7mm down to 17.1mm at the 2-button push clasp. 2-button push clasp is made from solid grade 5 titanium and it's anthracite satin finished, and as you can see it's engraved with high definition engraving with the fleur de lis or lily, which is the Pequignet emblem. 2-button push triggers are correctly proportioned and they are also anthracite grade 5 titanium, and no sharp edges, no burrs, and they don't project too far from the left or the right hand flank of the clasp. So excellent clasp. I'm pleased to see it's signed rather than being sterile. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the flat sapphire crystal. I like the way the flat sapphire crystal has a bevel on the edge which projects above the grade 5 titanium bezel on the head of the piece, because the bevel on the edge catches the light and it does look very aesthetically pleasing. Vertical brushed satin finishing to the dial, which is anthracite, which complements the satin anthracite finishing to the bezel, head of the piece and also the bracelet. Now, one detail I like about this is the symmetry of the dial with the absence of a date complication. Perfectly symmetrical dial. Double indices at 12 o'clock, which gives good symmetry to the dial, but also good orientation. One can immediately identify 12 o'clock on the dial. So double indices at 12 and then single stick indices at the other hour marks. Black minute ticks on the chaptering are printed with high definition crisp printing, so legibility is outstanding. The black minute ticks and black applied stick indices contrast very well with the vertical brushed satin finishing to the anthracite dial. Skeletonized baton hands are correctly proportioned. One can clearly differentiate between the longer skeletonized baton minute hand and the shorter skeletonized baton hour hand. The needle point second hand is black with a large rectangle counterbalance on it, and it extends all the way to the black minute ticks on the chaptering. So this is something I like about Pequignet. They get the proportions of the handset correct. They're wide enough, they're long enough, and even though they're skeletonized, they provide excellent legibility. The functionality of this piece is excellent as a daily wear piece or alternatively a dress piece. What I like about the dial is it's not over-branded with unnecessary text or specification. Often mid-tier brands have a tendency to print too much information and too much specification on the dial, which makes it look too busy and cluttered. This is minimalist. So we simply have Pequignet's text logo at 12 o'clock, and then either side of the 6 o'clock index on the dial we have Manufacture Français, which confirms that this piece is made in Morteau in France, and the movement used, the Pequignet Calibre Initial Automatic, is also made in-house. Just the right amount of information, Pequignet and Manufacture Français. We don't have automatic printed across the dial at 6, and we don't have, for example, the water resistance rating, which is 100 meters. This is negligible information for a daily wear or a dress piece. By having a minimalist dial with just the brand Pequignet and also Manufacture Français, it keeps the dial clean, and I like the legibility, the functionality of it, and the minimalist design of it because it just looks very aesthetically pleasing. The vertical brushed satin finishing to the anthracite dial is absolutely gorgeous. I love the way it catches the light, and it's very subtle. It's got a subtle sheen to it, so rather than being glossy as per an enamel dial or a matte finish to a textured dial, the vertical satin finishing has a slightly reflective property to it, but it is subtle, so it just looks grey, but when you tilt it at an oblique angle you can see the vertical grained finish to it, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. This is a very well executed dial. Quality of the printing of the Pequignet logo and also Manufacture Français at 6 o'clock is outstanding. High definition and crisp. The quality of the printing on the dial, the black minute ticks and also the Pequignet text logo and Manufacture Français, this is high tier level printing of the dial. And one has to remember, this is not a high tier piece costing 10,000 plus euro. It is a mid-tier piece costing €4,800, but the dial execution in terms of the quality of the finishing to the black stick indices, the printing on the dial, the brushed satin finishing to the vertical lines or the satin grained finish to the dial, also the skeletonized hands, is perfection personified. So this piece is entirely made from grade 5 titanium. So the bezel is solid grade 5 titanium, head of the piece, exhibition case back, bracelet and also clasp, and I can tell you this is some of the best grade 5 titanium finishing I have seen. To put the finishing of this piece into perspective, it is high tier level, so it's 10,000 plus euro finishing to the grade 5 titanium. It's shot blasted finish rather than being sand blasted or bead blasted, so shot blasting gives this nice satin anthracite tone, and the quality of the shot blasting to this grade 5 titanium is stellar. Absolutely flawless on every facet of the piece. The bezel, the head of the piece, the case back, the bracelet, the clasp, the crown are shot blasted to perfection. Bezel is correctly proportioned, and I really like the shape of it. It gives the piece a vintage 1970s aesthetic, and Pequignet have been making watches since 1973 in France. The Concorde is their most iconic piece, so this really does have the aesthetic of a 1970s Concorde, as you can see. I love the shape of it. What I like about it is it's an original design. This is not an homage. For example, this is not an homage to the Patek Philippe Nautilus, and it's not an homage to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. This is an original Pequignet design. The Concorde is iconic. It's original, not an homage. So, bezel is correctly proportioned, shot blasted finish to it, grade 5 titanium, and looks very aesthetically pleasing. Head of the piece is finished to perfection. Beautiful shot blasted satin finishing in anthracite on the flanks. Nice large bevel which runs the full length of the case, and that marks the transition between the top of the integrated lugs and the flanks. And this bevel is also shot blasted to a matte satin anthracite finish. No sharp edges to the undercuts to the flanks. The tips of the integrated lugs have been deburred and chamfered correctly. No sharp corners whatsoever. Finishing of this piece is high tier level. So let's look at the integrated bracelet in detail. Integrated lugs, internally they are 12.2mm and the bracelet flares, so it is wider, 19.7mm, tapering down to 17.1 at the 2-button push clasp. Let's check the articulation. Fantastic. This is an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get bracelet execution correct. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play in any direction, lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play, and yet it articulates freely, and there's a good amount of articulation. Benefits of the articulation to the obelisk links is that they allow the end link in the obelisk link bracelet to fit snug to the wrist, and this is very good. Often it's a problem with integrated bracelet pieces like this. Because they don't have female pitted end links, they have integrated links. The integrated links don't allow for extra articulation, so often one gets an abhorrent gap beneath the tips of the lugs and the end link in the bracelet. And this is often the problem with integrated bracelets, but this obelisk link bracelet doesn't have that problem because the obelisk links articulate very well. So to clarify, the reason why it's called an obelisk link bracelet is because the shape or the profiling of the links are obelisk shaped, and they're inspired by an obelisk in a famous square in Paris. And as you can see, the profiling or the shape of the links is rather like an obelisk shape. And again, this is a unique aspect of the Concorde, something I really like about it. They haven't just used the default option of a Jubilee style or Oyster style or flat link bracelet or beads of rice bracelet, which is the industry standards. This is an original bracelet design. The obelisk link bracelet is unique to the Concorde and unique to Pequignet, and this is something I like about it. We are not looking at an homage with a Jubilee style bracelet or an Oyster style bracelet as per so many micro brands and mid-tier brands. This is an original obelisk design. So articulation is fantastic. Let's check the other side. Again, stellar. Interference friction fit. So the bar going through the holes is perfect. Interference friction fit. Articulates smoothly, doesn't feel stiff or kink, doesn't have excess play in any direction. This is stellar. It's an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get it correct between €500 and €5,000. So obelisk link bracelet articulates freely, and this is one of the best articulating integrated bracelets I've experienced. The obelisk links articulate freely. They don't feel stiff or kink, they flow nicely. Let's check the other side for continuity. Silky smooth. This is an absolute pleasure. The benefit of this articulating freely and not being stiff or kinking is that it flows around the wrist. It articulates, it curves around the wrist very well. This enhances the comfort level and the feel-good factor of this piece. Doesn't have any excess play. Longitudinal, lateral, side to side or up and down play. So articulates freely as it should do, but it's not sloppy. It doesn't rattle. Let's check the other side. Again, doesn't have excess play in any direction, nice and tight. That's the benefit of using 1.2mm flat head screws versus pin and collars, and I'm pleased to see they haven't used the production cost cutting measure of push pins at this price point. Sometimes mid-tier brands and mid-tier micro brands use the cost cutting measure of push pins or pin and collars versus 1.2mm screw pins. The 1.2mm screw pins are also made from grade 5 titanium to perfection, so they tighten up the tolerances. Doesn't rattle, not a sloppy bracelet. In terms of finishing, the shot blasting to this bracelet is high tier level. This is the kind of shot blast finish on a grade 5 titanium bracelet I would expect to see on a high tier piece costing €10,000 plus. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. It is deburred and chamfered to the highest standards. This is stellar finishing. Matte finish is absolutely gorgeous. So rather than having the longitudinal brushed satin finishing as per a 316L grade stainless steel bracelet like the Concorde 40mm, which is stainless steel that I previously reviewed, this has a matte finish to it. So it does have a sheen to it, but it doesn't have the same luster as longitudinal brushed satin finished 316L grade stainless steel. It's got a more anthracite tone to it, more grey rather than silver as per stainless steel. That's a characteristic of grade 5 titanium, the grey look of it, but it's just beautiful the way it catches the light. So even though it doesn't have the luster of stainless steel, we do have that anthracite satin sheen due to the shot blasted finish. They've made the correct decision by not using sandblasting or bead blasting to finish it. Shot blasting gives it a more reflective property because the shot blasted finish is finer. If they use sandblasted finish, it would make it more rough and coarse, and therefore one would get a more refracted light, but this is more reflective. As you can see, shot blasting gives it a lovely sheen. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's look at the clasp in detail. So, 2-button push deployment, and as you can see, or butterfly clasp, and as you can see, interior is also shot blasted to perfection. 2 spring-loaded triggers are correctly proportioned, heavily sprung-loaded, so it feels reliable and robust. Let's check the hinge pins. Left-hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. No play whatsoever, nice and tight. Interference, friction, fit. An example to other mid-tier brands how to get it correct. This is fantastic tolerances. Inner left-hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. No play whatsoever, nice and tight, interference fit. Inner right-hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Nice and tight. Finally, let's check the right-hand hinge pin. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. No play whatsoever. This is nice and tight. This is an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get build quality, quality control, tolerances and finishing correct. All 4 hinge pins, left-hand outer, left-hand inner, right-hand outer, all 4 hinge pins have friction interference fits. They feel silky smooth. They articulate freely. They don't feel stiff or kink, but they do not have excess play. So this 2-button push butterfly clasp doesn't rattle. It's not sloppy. It's nice and tight. It is handed, so you have to close the left-hand side first, snap shut with a nice positive click, and then the right-hand portion overlaps with a nice positive click because it's signed. And this overlap, this panel here, is engraved with high-definition engraving with the fleur de lis, the lily emblem of Pequignet. It's fantastic. The other thing I like about it is the curvature. If you look at it, you can see the internals, which are grade 5 titanium. They have a nice curvature, so even if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, the curvature means it will wrap around the wrist. You're not going to get this abhorrent gap beneath the 2-button push butterfly clasp. It's often the case with this style of butterfly clasp that they have the wrong curvature, and also the internals are too thick, so you get this large gap beneath the bracelet and the internals of it, and also there isn't enough recess or scalloping beneath it, so it doesn't curve around the wrist. You always get a gap because it's like a slab of titanium sitting against the wrist rather than this curvature with the 2 scallops. So this is very nicely profiled even for a 6 to 7 inch wrist. It wraps around the wrist very well, which I'll show you in the wrist shot. Opens freely, it's stellar. Let's look at the case back in detail. So case back is grade 5 titanium, and we've got 6 flathead screws, which are also grade 5 titanium, screwing it down. This provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 metres, which is strong specification. I want to give due credit to Pequignet here, because strictly speaking, this does not need 100 metres of hermetic seal. 50 metres and a pressed-on case back would have been enough for a daily wear or a dress piece. 100 metres is strong specification for a daily wear or dress piece. Also, they've made the correct decision by displaying the movement. Pequignet are proud that in 2011 they became a manufacturer, and they began manufacturing their own in-house calibers in Morteau in France rather than buying in movements from Sellita and ETA. And of course they've used the sapphire crystal exhibition caseback to display the in-house caliber, which they're very proud of. So to clarify, this Pequignet caliber initial automatic is the 3rd in-house caliber they made from 2011, and it's been in service since 2021. Very aesthetically pleasing movement. Good to see an exhibition case back. They could have used the production cost-cutting measure of a solid grade 5 titanium case back and not displayed movement, but they've done the more expensive option, which is an exhibition case back. It's glazed with sapphire crystal, and what I like about it is the sapphire crystal glazing is a large diameter. So it really does do a good job of displaying the movement to its best effect. So the grade 5 titanium portion is actually very slender and low profile, and they've minimalised it. But if you look at the glazing, it's actually a very large diameter. The benefit of it having this large diameter sapphire crystal in the exhibition caseback is it's very flat, very smooth, and that improves the comfort level and the feel good factor. It's also not very deep and a bubble back case back. Now this piece is very impressive. It's only 9.5 millimeters thick, even though it has an exhibition case back with 100 meters, which adds some thickness. That's the benefit of this movement. It's a very thin caliber. The Pequignet caliber initial automatic is very low profile. It's very thin. Also has a very thin skeletonized rotor. And because it's such a thin caliber, they've been able to make this piece only 9.5 millimeters thick, and it still is 100 meters. We're not looking at a quartz powered piece or a manual wind piece with 9.5 millimeters, which would not be impressive. But to get an exhibition case back on a 100 meter water resistant piece that is only 9.5 is an incredible achievement, and that's down to how thin the caliber is. So very low profile and flat, very smooth against the wrist. Quality of the engraving around the circumference of the case back is high definition and crisp. We have Pequignet, the reference number for the piece, and the specification. So the engraving doesn't feel sharp or rough, feels perfectly smooth, and the screws are recessed into the grade 5 titanium, so no sharp edges to the screws. It's excellent. This is high tier level case back finishing on a mid-tier piece. Now, as an alternative to using spring bars, the integrated bracelet is secured with stainless steel bars, but the actual integrated bracelet is secured to the bars using flathead screws, which are made from grade 5 titanium. So this is, again, what I want to give due credit to Pequignet for, because this is the highest level finishing, build quality, quality control, materials and tolerances, because they could have just used the less expensive default option of using standard stainless steel quick release spring bars, which of course would have been a production cost cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece. That would be beneficial for Pequignet. But what they've done here is the very best, because they've used grade 5 titanium flathead screws, and the screws secure the stainless steel bar. This means that the bar going through the integrated links of the lugs and also the bracelet itself have very tight tolerances. So as I've demonstrated, you can see the benefit, you can feel the benefit, because this is not sloppy. These integrated obelisk links in the obelisk link bracelet, it articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but doesn't have any excess play whatsoever. Nice and tight. Had they used spring bars, you would have got a sloppy interference fit. It would have had too much play, but you can see the benefit. Two flathead grade 5 titanium screws, which tighten down onto the stainless steel bar going through the integrated lugs and the integrated obelisk link bracelet. Nice and tight. Same on the other side, as you can see. These two grade 5 titanium flathead screws mean that they can tighten up the tolerances. So this really does enhance it, because it's just silky smooth. The articulation is stellar. No play, but doesn't feel stiff or kink. It's an example to other mid-tier brands of how to get it right. So we're not seeing any cost-cutting measures. What we're looking at here is correct decision after correct decision. Right, so let's test the push-pull crown execution. So, solid grade 5 titanium knurled crown. Nice large chamfer on the tips of the knurled teeth, and that prevents any sharp edges. It deletes them, which is good. And of course, it is embossed with the Pequignet fleur de lis, or lily, which is the brand emblem to a good standard. Again, shot blasted to perfection. This is high tier level finishing to the grade 5 titanium knurled crown. Correctly proportioned. It's large enough to be grippy and tactile. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, but yet it doesn't stick too far proud of the right hand flank. So when you flex the wrist, the crown doesn't dig into the back of the hand. It's perfect. Let's check the execution. So as it's a push-pull crown versus a screw-down crown, in the closed position, one can manually wind the Pequignet caliber initial automatic to its maximum 65-hour power reserve. Now just think about that for a moment. Usually automatic calibers have a 40-hour power reserve. That's the industry standard. That's nothing impressive. This has an incredible 65-hour power reserve, an excess of 25 hours of power reserve over the industry standard. It's incredible. And the benefit of it being a push-pull crown is you don't need to unscrew it in order to hack the movement, set the time, or manually wind it. So when it's closed, it provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters. Now again, This piece, strictly speaking, does not need 100 meters. It's not a dive piece. We're looking at a daily wear piece or a dress piece. They could have just made this 50 meters of hermetic seal, but they've used 2 rubber O-ring gasket seals to provide 2 hermetic seals. So we have one rubber O-ring gasket seal inside the crown and a second rubber O-ring gasket inside the crown tube. The 2 rubber O-ring gaskets provide an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters, which is strong specification for a daily wear or dress piece. So, feels silky smooth to manually wind. Doesn't feel rough or gritty. In terms of refinement, in terms of smoothness, this feels smoother than manually winding a Sellita caliber SW200-1 or an ETA caliber 2824-2, which you may be familiar with. It doesn't feel rough or gritty, it doesn't feel stiff. You can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up, and it builds up steadily to its maximum 65-hour power reserve. So to clarify, 40 full clockwise turns is enough to fully manually wind it to its maximum 65 hours. So when the mainspring is fully unwound and exhausted, when the movement stops dead and the power is depleted, 40 clockwise turns is enough to fully manually wind it to its 65 hours. It feels very smooth. It's an absolute pleasure. This is one of the smoothest manual winding experiences I've had, and one can really feel the refinements of the caliber initial automatic. If I had to choose one word to describe it, it would be refinement. It's just silky smooth, absolute pleasure to manually wind. Putting it out to the first click position is the final click, and again this is a benefit because this piece does not have a phantom date setting position. The caliber initial does not have a date complication, so therefore this does not have a phantom date setting position. When you pull it out to the first click, that is the final click. So as you can see, I've now hacked the movements, therefore it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the caliber initial automatic. We're now in the time setting position. Silky smooth. Really light resistance to it. This is very low friction. It's a 21 dual movement, and you can really feel the refinements in the cutting of the gearing. The meshing of the gearing in this caliber is perfection personified. It feels silky smooth. Minimal friction clockwise and anti-clockwise. It's got very low friction in it. You can feel the gearing is precision. The machining of the gearing in this caliber is high tier level. We're looking at €10,000+ high tier level finishing to the gearing in this movement. It's just stellar. So clockwise and anti-clockwise feels exactly the same. Feels very light, feels very smooth, doesn't feel like a lot of resistance, doesn't feel rough or gritty, and it just feels sublime. Minimal backplay. When you rotate the knurled crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there's an almost immediate response to the skeletonized baton minute hand. It almost immediately responds. So it's very responsive. One doesn't need to take up a lot of slack. There's less play or less backplay or slack in this than a Sellita SW200-1 or an ETA 2824-2, which you may be familiar with. And one can feel that refinement in the gearing. Now, mechanically, some backplay is necessary because if it didn't have some backplay in the gearing, what would happen is when you push back in the crown, it would cause the skeletonized baton hand to jump out of position. But by having just a slight amount of backplay in the meshing of the gearing, the slack means that when you push back in the crown, the winding stem enters the movement and it doesn't cause the minute hand to jump. So this is perfect. They've got it right. Minimal amount of backplay, but yet it doesn't jump out of position. When I push back in the crown, the minute hand remains static. It doesn't move. It's perfect. Feels good to manually wind. Where hacking works well. Also feels good to set the time. Feels smooth. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, there are 2 things I like about Pequignet that I want to make you aware of. Pequignet offer a service where they size the bracelet for you. So to clarify, I have not sized this bracelet. Pequignet asked me what my wrist size was and I said 8 inches, which is 20 centimeters. Now, they will make the bracelet to fit your wrist specifically. So if you tell them your wrist measurement accurately, they will then make the bracelet for your piece, regardless of whether you have a 36mm or 40mm Concorde, a 36 titanium or the 40mm stainless steel version, for example. They will size the obelisk link bracelet to fit your wrist to perfection. So I said to them, I have a 8-inch wrist, which is 20 centimeters, and they made this bracelet to fit my 8-inch wrist to perfection. It is the perfect fit. And that's something I really like about Pequignet. It's something that other mid-tier brands do not offer between the €500 and €5,000 price point. They do not make the bracelets sized perfectly to your wrist. The benefit of this is when you take the watch out of the watch box, you put it on your wrist for the first time, it fits you perfectly. It's rather like a bespoke suit. which is tailor-made to fit you, measured to perfection. They make their bracelets to fit your wrist specifically. So that's the benefit. You don't need to resize the bracelet yourself. You don't need to take the watch to a boutique or an authorized dealer to have them resize the bracelet. And sometimes resizing titanium bracelets is difficult because the grade 5 titanium screws are obviously bonded into the obelisk links using thread locker to prevent them unscrewing accidentally with daily wear. And of course it can be difficult sometimes to unscrew titanium screws. That's the reality of it, and sometimes collectors will chew the screw heads or they'll strip the threads because they don't use the correct method, which is to heat up the thread locker to break the bond and therefore unscrew it correctly. But the point I'm making is Pequignet offer a sizing service. They can provide bracelets from a minimum 14 millimeters up to a maximum 22.5, so a huge range. 14 centimeters, sorry, not millimeters, 14 centimeters up to 22.5. So even if you have a below 6-inch wrist size or even a larger than 8-inch wrist size, they will make the bracelet to fit. And as you can see, this one fits my wrist to perfection. The other thing I like about Pequignet, and again other mid-tier brands don't offer it, is they offer custom engraving free of charge. So for example, if you want your piece engraved with your initials or a specific date, such as a birth date of a child or an anniversary as a gift, they will engrave the piece with custom engraving free of charge. This is stellar. Really, this is what I like about Pequignet. Not only do they size the bracelets like a bespoke tailor-made suit, but they also custom engrave the piece with, for example, your name, your initials, a date of birth, or for example an important date like a wedding anniversary. This is the kind of customer service level we're talking about with Pequignet. 5 years of warranty, custom sizing the bracelet and engraving it with custom engraving free of charge. Stellar. So as you can see, the fit of this piece is perfection personified. Nice taper on the bracelet. So to clarify, to remind you once again, internally, the integrated lugs are 12.2. Bracelet itself, the integrated bracelet with obelisk links, tapers from 19.7 at the head of the piece down to 17.1 at the 2-button push butterfly clasp. Beautiful taper. 19.7 down to 17.1 is just right. Nice amount of meat at the integrated bracelet. The head of the piece, integrated lugs, 36mm head of the piece is balanced well by the 19.7 integrated obelisk link bracelet, and it's got a nice taper. It's not too aggressive, 19.7 gradually tapering down to 17.1. The thing I like about it, as I've detailed, is the curvature of the internals of the 2-button push butterfly clasp, because you can see we don't have this large abhorrent gap. Often one gets this because these kind of butterfly clasps often have a thick slab of 316L stainless steel or grade 5 titanium, and we get this large gap beneath the bracelet itself, but this bracelet doesn't have it because it curves around the wrist well. 2-button push triggers are correctly proportioned, they're not too wide. This isn't a bulky clasp, as you can see. I like the rectangle with the Pequignet Fleur de Lis emblem, and the satin finishing, the shot blast finishing to the grade 5 titanium is stellar. So looks good, feels good, very comfortable. The articulation of this bracelet is fantastic. It wraps around the wrist very well. Taper doesn't look too aggressive, but we do have enough meat at the integrated end of the bracelet where the integrated lugs are, so it has enough meat to look balanced. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. Now, this piece feels invisible. Feels absolutely weightless on wrist. It's only 83 grams. I previously reviewed the Concorde 40mm, which is stainless steel. And of course, that's a much heftier piece because it's larger at 40mm, but also it's stainless steel with an integrated stainless steel bracelet. This is noticeably lighter. It really does feel invisible. It's so comfortable that you just don't feel it on wrist. The other thing I like about it above all else is how low profile it is. This is only 9.5mm. Now, to clarify, if this were quartz powered or a mechanical manual wind piece with 9.5mm, I would say that's nothing unusual, it's not impressive. But this is an automatic with a rotor. Not only that, we're not looking at an automatic with 40 hours of power reserve here. This is 65 hours power reserve. Fantastic performance. I would expect a high power reserve automatic to add thickness to the caliber. Therefore, I would expect this piece to be 13mm plus with 65 hours. This is only 9.5. 9.5 is the kind of thickness I would expect with a quartz powered or manual wind mechanical movement piece, not an automatic with a rotor, because of course the rotor needs adequate clearance. in between the case back and the rotor. But look how flat it is. This is the benefit of the sapphire crystal glazing, which is large diameter, as I've detailed. Just look how snug the undercut to the flanks of the case is to my wrist. No gap whatsoever. This does not have a bubble back case back. It's not 13mm thick. This is only 9.5. But it still has 100 meters of hermetic seal and also 65 hours of power reserve. Stellar specifications. Very low profile at 9.5. Flat sapphire crystal is the correct choice. Had they used a double dome sapphire crystal or a box top hat crystal to give it a vintage aesthetic, that would have added 2mm of thickness. You can see the benefits of the flat sapphire crystal. Very low profile. The flat sapphire crystal glazing in the exhibition caseback also benefits the piece. 9.5 is fantastic. This is one of the slimmest low profile daily wear or dress pieces I have reviewed on my channel, and I've reviewed over 500 watches. 9.5 for an automatic is fantastic. 100 meters, 65 hour power reserve, but still only 9.5. This really does feel weightless. Because of the perfect bracelet sizing to perfectly fit my wrist, it feels invisible. 83 grams is just fantastic, and of course that's the benefit of this being grade 5 titanium. It's much lighter than 316L grade stainless steel. If this were stainless steel in 36mm, it would be 100 grams plus, with the same amount of links in the obelisk link bracelet. But we're not looking at a 100 gram piece. This is 83 grams, and it really does feel invisible. It's one of the most comfortable pieces I've ever experienced. It's just the feel-good factor and the comfort level of this piece are fantastic. 9.5 thick, so it's low profile. You'll know this from my previous reviews. Anything below 13mm is the sweet spot to easily fit under a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So needless to say, at 9.5, this easily slips underneath a shirt cuff. Therefore, it's practical for a daily wear piece. It's also practical as a dress piece. In terms of finishing, it does have a different aesthetic to the Concorde 40 that I reviewed, which is stainless steel, because of course that's brushed satin finished, and it does look more satin, it looks more anthracite, so really it does look like a futuristic watch. It looks more like a sci-fi film watch rather than being a vintage piece from the 1970s, so that's something to bear in mind. It's got a more contemporary look. The styling of it, the design of it, does look pure 1970s. So this really does look like a 1970s Pequignet Concorde due to the shape of it and of course the obelisk link bracelets. But in stainless steel, like the Concorde 40 I reviewed, that has a more shiny silver finish to the brushed satin finishing, and one could subjectively say a more beautiful luster, but it's subjective. Some collectors will appreciate the luster of the stainless steel version, the 40mm version of Concorde I reviewed. Some collectors will like the futuristic or sci-fi look of this anthracite finish, which is matte because it's shot blasted finish versus brushed satin finish. I like the grade 5 titanium look, and I say this as someone, I don't actually usually like grade 5 titanium. I prefer 316L grade stainless steel. I also like 904L oyster steel used by Rolex. I often talk about the luster because I really like it, but I can honestly say this is the first titanium piece I've reviewed on my channel where I actually really like the look, because it does have that futuristic sci-fi look. So it's really like the contrast between the two. It's a vintage 1970s looking piece due to the style of the shape of the head of the piece and the obelisk link bracelet, which is integrated. But because of the finish, rather than being brushed satin finished as per stainless steel, this shot blasted anthracite finish gives it a sci-fi or futuristic look. So I like the contrast, vintage styling, but the actual finishing looks futuristic, like a sci-fi watch. I just absolutely love it. I think this is a fantastic looking piece. Feel good factor is 10 out of 10. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. 9.5mm and also 83 grams. It's the most comfortable piece I've experienced in 500 plus watches. Pequignet deserve credit, they've got it correct. Right, so let's do a Lume test and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. Now, this uses X1 superluminova. So to clarify, X1 has a brighter green tone to it than C3, which you'll all be familiar with. X1 has a whiter tone to it, so the exciter has more potency. In terms of the initial brightness of it and the longevity, X1 does give stellar performance. So it has a brighter exciter than C3 and a lighter green tone. It's more like C1. X1 really is the very best of superluminova. Now, as you can see, One has to be magnanimous because this uses skeletonized baton hands. Now obviously skeletonized baton hands do not allow for a large area or large plots of the X1 Super Lume Nova to be applied. And strictly speaking, one doesn't need to have Super Lume Nova on a daily wear or a dress piece. They could be forgiven if they did not use any X1 Super Lume Nova on the skeletonized hands whatsoever. We're not looking at a dive piece, we're looking at a daily wear piece or a dress piece. The Concorde's original intention is a dress piece. Now as you can see, I'm going to charge it up again to get the camera to autofocus on it. One can clearly differentiate between the skeletonized minute hand, which is a baton hand, and the skeletonized hour hand, which is also a baton hand, because there is more length of X1 Super Lume Nova applied to the minute hand. It's longer. It is possible to read the time in the dark. Now subjectively one could be critical and say, well, they've applied X1 Super Lume Nova to the baton hands, but they haven't applied any to the stick indices. Of course it would be better if it had X1 Super Lume Nova on the stick indices as well as the hands, because then you could register the hand position to the indices. But this is subjective, because really if they did that, one could subjectively say, well, it spoils the design, it spoils the aesthetic of the anthracite vertical brush satin finished dial with the black stick indices. So it's difficult to weigh up really. It comes down to the importance of, do you really want a daily wear or dress piece with X1 Super Lume Nova on the dial or not? I think on the skeletonized hands it's enough. One can read the time in the dark. The performance is good. The exciter is potent. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers versus the cost-cutting measure of 2 to 3 layers or 3 to 4 layers, which some mid-tier microbrands do. So I think the performance is good. X1 is potent, that's good. And one has to be magnanimous because they are skeletonized. We're not looking at full baton hands, they are skeletonized baton hands. So they don't allow for a large area or a large plot, and therefore the camera's struggling to autofocus. Not because the potency of the exciter is lacking, it's really just down to the area. There's a minimum amount of X1 Super Lume Nova applied. One could say, rather than using skeletonized hands, they could have made the hands fully loomed and just use regular baton hands. But the skeletonized hands are very legible in daylight, and of course they do add to the aesthetic of the piece being minimalist. So again, it's subjective. It comes down to whether you like skeletonized baton hands or regular solid baton hands. I think these are good. So performance of the exciter is potent, and we're looking at 5 to 6 layers. I think it's acceptable, although it could be improved if they used full baton hands rather than skeletonized. Right, so let's discuss the movement use, because this is my favourite aspect of the piece. So, as I've detailed, Pequignet have a rich brand heritage, founded in France in 1973. Most notably, in 2011, they became a manufacturer, and as I've detailed, what that means is, from 2011 onwards, they began to manufacture their own in-house calibers in Morteau in France. Incredible achievement for a microbrand to begin to produce their own in-house calibers. Often mid-tier microbrands between the price point of €500 and €5,000 have to buy in movements from ETA and Sellita respectively in order to make it cost effective to produce their pieces and retail them at a competitive price within their markets in the mid-tier. But I really want to give due respect to Pequignet here, because it is a very expensive investment for a mid-tier microbrand to produce their own in-house calibers, and they've managed to succeed in doing it. So from 2011 onwards, they began to produce their own in-house calibers. This one, the Caliber Initial Automatic, is their third in-house caliber. It's been in circulation or in production since 2021. So at this stage in 2025, the reliability is proven beyond question. It's been in service since 2021 to the present day. Third movement they've produced, reliability is good, accuracy, build quality, quality control, tolerances, finishing and materials are all exceptional. To put the quality into perspective, this is a level above the Sellita SW200-1, and it's a level above the ETA 2824-2 in terms of quality, materials, finishing, build quality and accuracy. Also, power reserve is a level above, because automatic calibers like this typically have a 40-hour power reserve, as I've detailed. This has a 65-hour power reserve, so it exceeds the industry standard 40 hours by a very impressive 25 hours. Often with high power reserve movements like this, which are 65 hours versus the standard 40 hours, they are thick because the mainspring needs to be bigger and therefore thicker. And of course, to house it, the caliber itself needs to be made thicker. So often the negative of high power reserve movements is that with 65 hours, the movement becomes thick and therefore the head of the piece needs to be thick to house it. This piece is only 9.5. And overall, this is the main benefit of the caliber initial, because it's a very thin movement with a very thin skeletonized rotor. So although it has 65 hours, it's very low profile. And of course, the benefit of that is this piece is only 9.5 as a result. We're not looking at a 13mm thick piece. 9.5 is the kind of thickness one would expect with a quartz powered or mechanical manual wind powered piece, but it's not. It's an automatic with a rotor. So the bridges of this movement are different to the bridges of the movement used in the Concorde 40mm in stainless steel, which I previously reviewed. So to clarify, they both use the same caliber initial automatic, but however, the stainless steel version of the Concorde has arabesque finishing on the bridges and also pelage finishing. Now, subjectively, I prefer that. I prefer the finishing of the movement used in the Concorde 40 because I really like the high quality arabesque finishing and high quality pelage finishing. The bridges to this version of the caliber initial are shot blasted. Sorry, they are sandblasted. So to clarify, the case of this piece, the bezel and the case back are shot blasted anthracite finish, as I've detailed. But the bridges to the movement itself are sandblasted finish, not shot blasted, they are sandblasted. After sandblasting, they are anthracite ruthenium coated. And the anthracite ruthenium coating on both the rotor and also the bridge to the movement gives it this matte finish, so it's anthracite. Now the benefit of the ruthenium coating is it has this grey finish or anthracite finish which matches the tone of grade 5 titanium, because obviously the movement itself is not made from grade 5 titanium. But to get the same finish, the same look, the same aesthetic as grade 5 titanium which has been shot blasted, what they've done with the bridges is they have sandblasted them and then anthracite ruthenium coated them to give them this grey anthracite finish. So it's good because what we've got here is a movement which is anthracite in a matte finish, ruthenium coated, and that matches the shot blasted finish to the grade 5 titanium exhibition caseback and head of the piece and bracelet. So they've matched it. Subjectively, I would have preferred if they used the same finishing as on the caliber initial automatic used in the Concorde 40 stainless steel version, because I really like the arabesque finishing and the pelage finishing, but this is divisive, it's subjective. Some collectors will like the sandblasted finish with anthracite ruthenium. I personally prefer arabesque finishing with pelage, but it comes down to your personal preference. With regards to the rotor, it's very thin and low profile. It's skeletonized, and of course you can see it's engraved with the fleur de lis, or the lily, which is the emblem of Pequignet. High definition engraving of the fleur de lis. It's stellar finishing. So to clarify, this movement in terms of build quality, quality control, materials and finishing, accuracy and power reserve, every aspect of it, it's high tier level. This in-house caliber, if this piece were Swiss made with a Swiss house in-made caliber like this, it would be €10,000+ price point. It would be a high tier piece. We're not looking at a €10,000+ price point piece with an in-house caliber. This is a mid-tier piece costing only 4,800. So specifications of it are 21 joules. It runs at 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz. Has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications. Doesn't have a date complication, which is good, so the dial has perfect symmetry. And of course, the other benefit is there is no phantom date setting position. One click on the crown, which is good. 65-hour power reserve is my favourite part of the specification. That's very impressive. This could have 40 hours. But 65 exceeds that by 25. 65 hours is very impressive for a mid-tier piece at this price point. It's exceptional. It's regulated in 6 positions to chronometer accuracy. So to clarify, chronometer accuracy is -4 to +6. Usually top grade and chronometer grade calibers are only regulated in 5 positions. Pequignet go one better. They regulate it in 6 positions, which is the ultimate. This actually exceeds COSC chronometer limits of -4 to +6. This is regulated when it's fully wound to its maximum 65 hours to +1 second per day. I can confirm this is running at +1 when it's fully wound to 65 hours. So not only does it have a very impressive 65-hour power reserve, it also is +1 second per day. It is well within the -4 to +6 stated chronometer accuracy. Regulated in 6 positions is the ultimate. So fantastic. This is one of the greatest Pequignet in-house calibers they have made. It's the third in-house caliber they've made. They've produced it in 2021. Reliable, accurate, stellar power reserve, 65 hours, no negatives, and it's very thin. Above all else, that's what I like, because what they've done is they've reduced it to 9.5. Are there any negatives to it? None whatsoever. I like everything about it. I regard it as a masterpiece. It's one of the very best Pequignet in-house calibers they've made since they became a manufacturer in 2011 and began manufacturing their own in-house calibers in Morteau in France. It's fantastic. It's a credit to Pequignet to be able to produce their own in-house calibers within the mid-tier at the €4,800 price point rather than €10,000+ as per Swiss brands. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meets 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So, mid-tier piece, price point is €4,008. So to remind you again, to clarify, mid-tier is €500 to €5,000. This is at the upper end of the mid-tier at €4,800. I think Pequignet have underpriced this piece. If this were €6,000, I would still declare it excellent quality and excellent value at €6,000, but it's not a €6,000 piece. This is only €4,800. What you're looking at here, and make no mistake about this, is a French-made piece, which is €10,000+ price point, finishing, builds quality, quality control, materials, specification, accuracy, power reserve. It is stellar. What you're looking at is a piece without any QC issues whatsoever. Because it's made in France, the quality control level of this piece is high tier level. It's €10,000+ high tier level QC finishing. It's stellar. Everything about it. The piece itself is €10,000+ level. The in-house caliber is €10,000+ level. That's what we're looking at. If this were a Swiss-made piece with a Swiss-made in-house caliber, this would be a €10,000+ piece. But because it's made in Morteau in France by Pequignet and the caliber is in-house made by Pequignet Morteau in France, they've reduced it to €4,800 retail. I think the price point should be €6,000. I think it's undervalued, and therefore I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Pequignet Concorde Titanium 36mm. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.